A warm welcome to the Digital Angola panel debate with the headline Investment and Inclusion to Drive the Digital Economy in Angola. Angola is emerging from a 5-year recession. Macroeconomic stability is being restored and positive GDP growth is on the horizon. The country is currently facing a shift from an oil and gas-centered economy to a diversified economy. We'll discuss how Angola can fast-track its digital economy and challenges and opportunities faced in the process. I've been looking forward to this debate together with our panel speakers, Erickson and Morato, both pioneers in the Angolan tech ecosystem, and Leonard, an experienced entrepreneur and investor. Gentlemen, please share a brief presentation about yourselves.
Okay, if you allow me to go first. My name is Morato. I've been working with digital and financial inclusion, building companies from mobile phone factory through providing free internet access and a fintech to allow low-income people to have access to microcredit and microinsurance.
Thank you. Erickson, you want to go next?
Yeah, my name is Erickson Mvezi. I'm a CEO and founder of Tupuca. Tupuca is Angola's first super app that you can get anything on demand, from food, groceries. Today, you can even order cash. And I'm also a co-founder from a spin-off that Tupuca had. It's Televa. It's a taxi company that has about 1,000 electric cars, making it the largest EV fleet in Africa.
Excellent. Leonard.
Thanks so much for the intro. It's very, very impressive what you're building in Angola. So I'm Leo. I'm the founder and publisher of a media company called Pulse, which is a mass media company that runs media platforms in Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, and Senegal so far, where we inform and engage young people, which is the widest population in these markets. That's one of the business we do. And I'm right now actually in Kampala, Uganda, where we're going to launch at the beginning of next year with Pulse Uganda, because we think our mission is also important in Uganda, and we're also going to start in Cote d'Ivoire at the beginning of next year as well. So this is what I do kind of on a day-to-day basis. And I've also been lucky over the last really on the continent to also invest in startups in a digital ecosystem. And actually one of them is also in Angola, which is Job Artist, which is a jobs platform where people can find, look for jobs and find employment, which I'm involved in, apart from many other companies that I've been lucky to invest in on the African continent. And thank you very much for having me, Kenneth, on your panel.
Thank you for joining. I'm really looking forward to this, and I want to kick it off by saying, so the financial and digital inclusion is crucial for building a strong digital economy in Angola. However, the country's internet penetration is only at 27%, and the introduction of digital payment solutions came a decade late compared to mobile pay solutions such as Mvezi, launched in Kenya in 2007. So how can we fast track the digital and financial inclusion to drive the digital economy in Angola? Morato, do you want to maybe start on this one?
Yeah, digital and financial inclusion on the same sentence. It's my cue.
Exactly.
So first of all, we need to understand that the evolution is attached to the need. People don't buy into services that they don't feel that will add value to their lives. And what we have been seeing in Angola is that internet has been used for fun, for access to social media, and to get access to news. And the majority of the population in Angola, they have other needs. They want to transact, they want to pay, they want to have access to services, they want to be autonomous on how they generate their own value. So this slowed the penetration of internet in Angola. On the other hand, the lack of infrastructure, lack of roads, So the supply chain, the value chain was not built for this market to thrive. So now we need to look into the financial services in Angola. We have a replica of what Portugal is doing, where you have the financial sector controlled by banks, and you have a central company that has the monopoly of the interchange between the banks, and they look at the population with a penetration of bank accounts over 95%, which is different. The reality is different in Angola. So the current financial system in Angola doesn't suit 85% of the population. So you have the perfect conditions for people not to care about internet penetration. What has changed in the last few years is that brave guys like Tupuca, like Erickson with Tupuca, brave guys like Morato, brave guys like Erickson, they have been implementing, they have been launching digital services that make people realize that there is value on being connected. And now we are in the process of building a value chain that can actually fast track and accelerate that, which is not only at the end with the digital platform, but it starts with the device as well. That's why I built a mobile phone factory, and I have projects like WeConnect that we have more than 200,000 people registered in our platform that can have access to free internet across the country, and now people can see value. With what's happening in Africa, just very close to Angola, that we had not paying attention for the last 10 years around payments and digital solutions that can facilitate financial transactions. And because oil prices have been plummeted, the country is looking for other solutions. And the central bank has opened the door to entrepreneurs on the financial technology sector. We have now for the first time in Angola, we have a license that accounts for fintechs. And now we can build financial platforms that can facilitate people in the streets to transact. That is what will drive the fast track of digital and financial inclusion, which is communicating value on being connected. And the telcos and the government is just following what the entrepreneurs in Angola are doing very bravely, I must say.
I definitely share the same vision as Morato, because of we often talk about this the need. Like if a regular citizen doesn't see a need to own a smartphone, why would he purchase it? And if over time, like people were living their daily lives, not utilizing, not seeing the importance of a smartphone. I'll lead off as an example is like whenever we started Tupuca, we had an issue between hiring drivers that didn't have smartphones. Either we would have waited organically for them to purchase the smartphones, the business would never have launched, or we would have like, okay, let's decide to microfinance the smartphones. And so that way the business can kick off. And Morato like defends this thing really well with his factory. And I share the same vision as well. So the government is doing everything that it can regarding like implementing policies, trying to fix infrastructure. But one thing that we need to do is we need to add as much as the smart devices to the market as possible, because that will just create the following effect. Because let's say hypothetically, if we inflate the market with 1 million smartphones, what will happen? People will get used to social media, then eventually they're gonna be listening to key information, like which makes it like the market even more prone to investors. So one of the things that is critical in the defend is like, let's get mobile operated, let's get smartphone manufacturers to come up with ways of microfinancing the smart devices through even payment through data or through minutes, attaching the payments of the same devices to a universal need. That would just speed up the whole digital and financial inclusion. Because today we have about 1,500 people that are depending on a smartphone for them to make their daily living. And before that wasn't a reality. Without a smartphone, you cannot work for for a taxi company. Without a smartphone, you have to wait in line for 2 hours for you to do your own banking. Today, the trend is changing. So if you compare the cost of changing the whole infrastructure versus financing smartphones is like, it's an easier way to finance smartphone, then you're going to have more literate people in the society. So that's the one of the way to really push it forward.
Leonard, do you have any thoughts?
Should I continue? I mean, first of all, what I am really fascinated by is that you, Morato, and Erickson are actually thinking about this as an opportunity as well to build not only business but also to actually have this impact of more people in Angola getting online and then also becoming financially included. So I think that makes a lot of sense to me. That resonates a lot. I would say a few things. I think number one, I think people want to be on the internet, and I think people want to have easier ways to be transacting with each other always. So I think that the great thing is that there's this huge demand that, so to say, you definitely have. Not all businesses are always knowing that what they are offering is really resonating, has a product market fit. The internet and financial inclusion are definitely things that people want. So I think that's a great basis for thinking about this not only as a need but also as a business opportunity. And there, I think some other countries, that's maybe which I can bring a little bit into the panel from my experience in Nigeria, where I've spent a lot of time over the last 10 years, is the following. Kenneth, you spoke about how in Kenya there is M-Pesa, and so this was so earlier than in other markets. So there's the financial inclusion really works there. But also in Nigeria, for example, there wasn't mobile payments for a long time because the regulation is different. And on the basis of that, so to say, lacking infrastructure, you now have huge companies coming up over the last years in OPay, Unicorn, in Fair Money, in CUDA, in Carbon. So all companies that kind of said, the banks that are here are great, but they're not solving for quick payments yet, or all of the financial services that really people want. So I think how I would think about this also for Angola is that it's still very much a potential that I believe also Morato and Erickson are also working on, where investors should be interested when they're looking at other markets to go after it. So I think one way of how to solve for these problems is to make sure that investors see this as one of the biggest opportunities that still exists. And I think the same thing can be said for the internet. I think there's new type of internet service providers in the market, Nigeria, like a Smile, like a POA in Kenya, and others, to kind of think about how do we bring internet to, so to say, more people that then can also go for services just like an OPay and so forth, be it via agent banking or any kind of other services that make it more possible for more people to be included in this financial services ecosystem. So for me, it sounds like a good opportunity for entrepreneurs to go after, and I think international investors should see this as the opportunity it is. And with it also make a great impact while doing it.
So just to add, we have to remove the narrative of we're late. We have to understand is like there's benefits of being late. We get to see what Kenya did well, what Nigeria did, and we're just going to leapfrog. And so much of that investment that was done, much of that loss is like you taking from a blueprint from where 10 different countries have done it successfully with different scenarios, with culture differences, and you're importing that solution to a market where they're going to get the best solution out of everything. So, and then the cost of investors getting into those markets, it's crazy high compared to these markets. So, and I know a lot of investors, like especially angel investors, that have missed out that opportunity to go in Nigeria and really like be part of that trend. Like we can do the same thing here, especially in SADC. So I encourage people to say like, okay, we're just fashionably late in the party and the party is already crowded. So we just know who to tackle now. So that's how we should perceive it.
Yeah, perfect. Guys, allow me. So, Leo, you were talking about Nigeria and Kenya, and I really wanted to highlight. So, African startups have raised a record $1.19 billion Mvezi funding in the first half of 2021. And Africa's big four, including Nigeria and Kenya, as well as South Africa and Egypt, they've accounted for 80% of all the African startup funding in this period. Meanwhile, Angolan startups have secured limited funding. What are the obstacles? And how can Angola create a fertile startup environment that can attract more investments? Morato, do you want to start on this one as well?
We can tap into a lot of conspiracy theories and that people don't like us, but I see it on a very simple way. One is the language barrier. When an investor from an English speaking country look into Angola, they have very little information, very little statistics available, and the way the government operates is not clear because doesn't follow any known standards that those investors are really accustomed to. The second is our biggest reference still is Portugal, which is a country that doesn't have the same needs of Angola. And the last thing is there is a lot of rating companies, rating Angola, the doing business environment, and so on and so forth. And because our currency is not an international transactional currency, it presents a very high risk for investors to put money in Angola without having the assurance that they will get their money out. The good thing is the scenario is changing because the last few years has produced a lot of different educated people that can produce content in English. We have a lot of good friends like you, Kenneth, that has been talking and sharing a lot of information about Angola and how to invest in Angola. We have people like Erickson. We have a lot of people like Morato that just funded a fintech in UK that is operating in South Africa, and he's from Angola as well. So the narrative is changing, and right now we can look at the issue on a different perspective. So the size of the market in Angola, of course, is not as big as Nigeria, but Angola can actually be the reference for providing services in the Portuguese-speaking countries in Africa, which represent almost 13% of the population, and we can actually create a commonwealth, let's say, of countries that can be digitalized and can exchange services because we have one thing in common, which is our language. And I think the time is now, as we said on the first part of the debate. The guys that missed the party in Nigeria on the Big Four can look at countries like in Angola, where the regulation has changed and the ecosystem is booming, and there is a lot of opportunity for investors.
Perfect. Leo, I really would love your take on it as well. You coming from an interesting position of actually having invested throughout the continent in startups, and also with one investment in Angola. Would you share your thoughts, please?
I mean, first of all, I would say, Morato, you said pretty much a lot of the points. I think that that make it, that made so far Angola not one of the main places for investors to invest, into Africa. I think you really said a lot, and you also said quite a few points around how to improve that sentiment towards Angola. I think definitely market sizing. The way how you speak about, hey, if you combine maybe the Portuguese countries, where it's definitely easier if you have one language to go into all of them, say Cape Verde, Mozambique, Angola, etc., and then kind of say, hey, this is actually a relevant market. I think that can definitely help. You said a lot. I think the one thing I would say, and you also mentioned how, Kenneth is you speaking about the market. You obviously are great representatives of Angola as a market, and I think is a very simplistic one, which is by not a lot of the investors globally being, Portuguese speaking or having a relationship, say, to Portuguese markets. I think it's just less known than other markets. I think there Nigeria primarily English speaking, Kenya primarily English speaking, Ghana, South Africa are just the first markets I think that that come to mind. Let alone the economic factors and all of these things, but just to really be able to see it, I think it's just easier to get information around those markets in the English language. You see this also to some extent, also in Francophone West Africa, there's less funding into companies than in English-speaking countries, right? So, and there maybe, Angola, definitely, Angola and Portuguese-speaking markets are kind of even tougher to penetrate information-wise by those international investors, which is why I think such a session, hearing about your company, Erickson, your company, Morato, and yours, Kenneth, I think can definitely help open up this information around Portuguese-speaking markets, and specifically Angola, to then even have the time to discuss, hey, okay, what happened in the last 5 years in Angola, but where are we now? Now there's growth, now there's opportunity, now there's growing internet penetration, but I think it needs this conversation, and I think it does need them sometimes also in English, and I think that's why it's great to have this session, Kenneth.
Yeah. So to add off on this, you guys summed up the really important points. I think we have to, Portuguese-speaking countries such as Angola have to change the strategy for going after investors, because of you have majority of investors investing in those four type of country. And whenever it comes to expand, they invest more money in the same countries in order to expand into our markets. So because they already know how they're operating, so our chances of actually being the gateway, it's even less, because it's okay, I want to invest in Flutter Wave, and the easiest thing for that investor is for the Flutter Wave people to say hey, let's expand to Angola, because it's the third, it used to be the third leading economy and all this stuff. So we need to package ourselves differently. You said one thing correctly. The Francophone countries have the same challenge. We need to create a narrative of you investing in Angola, you investing in Congo, you investing in the whole SADC region, which is about 300 million people. So our strategy as founders, we need to be really strategic of placing companies and initiatives across all these key markets. So whenever you present yourself, you say hey, I have a regional reach where I can replicate my solution easily and incubate it in Angola, and I can expand as quick as possible to the rest of the countries because we need to learn how to operate at the lower costs. And this has been the case for Tupuca for the last 6 years, where we managed to learn, even though being incubated, we managed to fail and get it right, really in the closed environment. Now we feel okay, we ticked all the marks that we can replicate the same solution across DRC, Mozambique, Namibia, Zambia, at the even smaller cost compared to the amount that we spend at the regional market. So it's more about the narrative. And another thing that I said is if you're to invest in Congo, it's easy for you to invest in Congo, Brazzaville, because they're neighbors speaking the same language. But as Lusophone countries that are, I would say landlocked in language terms, meaning there's no neighboring country from Lusophone country that speak the same language.
The same language, yeah.
They're usually surrounded by French and English. So, which makes it even tougher for us to actually try to break out. But Angola is a powerhouse. Oil producing is top 5. Diamonds, top 5. The only language thing is the barrier. So we need to do a great job of actually going outside. We need to showcase all the policies that have been improved. We need to showcase that even private sector banking are willing to act as a blanket, security blanket for investors to come in and say okay, if you invest in Angola, we're going to guarantee that your money is safe, and we're going to be the one going after the startup to make sure they don't mess up. And finally, startups now have to start taking the bold action on, say, going after investing and saying, Leonard, come to Angola, 5 days all expenses paid, for you to validate everything that we've been building and how a vision for the SADC region is being built. So these are the things that we need to be doing, because Nigerians, Rwanda, Ghana, Kenya, they know how to sell. And that's one thing that we need to learn, how to package the deal and understand what's the language that investors needs in order to put money.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Thanks so much for that. Another thing as well, as Leo pointed out, we need to have more of these conversations in English for English-speaking investors understanding the opportunity that exists in Angola. That is a barrier. The good thing is English is actually being taught now from the very beginning of schools. So from the first grade in Angolan schools, there's now English in the lessons, which is great. But overall, digital inclusion must be at the center of resetting education in Angola. Unemployment numbers in the country are very high, yet Angolan startups have difficulties finding qualified local software developers and are hiring outside of the country. How can we ensure that this and future generations get the qualifications and the skills that jobs in a digital economy require? Erickson, I would love you to take on that as well.
Yeah, so after doing a couple of research, and I related to one of the facts from our World Economic Forum, there were 65% of the children entering school today will engage in activities that they never existed once they graduate. So, and this is my case, I started school in 1995. And where my parents were telling me, you need to be an engineer because that's the future, because that's how he made out. 15 years later, graduated with mechanical engineering in 2014. And economic crisis, nobody's hiring. I went to business school. Now I'm running a business that is using mainly smartphones and people that don't have didn't have access to digital, even financial literacy, and we're changing the whole pattern. And nowadays is everything has changed. So we need to understand, first of all, is it's almost impossible at this phase for us to compete with Indians regarding software development because they're doing it at such affordable rate that it doesn't make sense. And principal economy is pretty much let the people that are doing something at the most cost-effective way, and you focus on another sector. So one of the things that founders that we need to do, and especially policymakers, we need to start developing product developers, people that can take what already exists and actually develop it to solve the needs and the problem that is required. And for a long period of time, people have been coded to actually just focus on core sectors, engineering, but today it has changed. I'm a mechanical engineer that I never used a single formula of what I learned. And it took me 4.5 years to finish that. So but it's more about the soft skills, the critical thinking, the how you analyze information, how you make decisions. These are the things that are really required. And for us to really speed up all this process, it's once again comes back to how many smart devices do we have, because the government is not going to be able to fund into do a educational reform to the whole country. It's too vast and it's going to take too much resources. But if you just make internet access, smartphone devices, then you can build platforms on top of that, from e-learning, from online courses, so many things. You can disseminate information and you can ensure that everybody has the same level, at least, of know-how. So then you can start building a digital economy on top of that. That's really critical.
Yeah, just to add to what Erickson said, and listen, your take was spot on, because one thing that we, as a society, we need to understand is that learning is cheaper than education, and our fight into digital inclusion in Angola and financial inclusion in Angola is to complement the initiatives of any government in Africa to to teach people and not just educate through the legacy system that we still use. And with more people online, as Leonard said, very spot on as well, people want to have access to the internet. People want to learn new things. People want to develop new skills. So we just need to align the needs with the solutions that we are building to the country, because we need to understand that countries like India, United States, even in Europe, it's not just the education system is better, but the access to information is also better. More people are connected, more people have access to information, more people get educated, and we need to free ourselves from that mentality in Africa that you need to go to school, you need to graduate from an engineering degree, you need to have 2.5 kids, you need to work at the bank, even though you are an engineer, and that's a stable life. So we need to free ourselves from that mentality, and we need to provide access to people to learn, which is cheaper than building schools across the country for people to get educated on legacy subjects. And of course, in the beginning, it will be tough. Entrepreneurs will rely on partnerships with other countries to get software developers, product developers, and people like Leonard, yourself, that can bring other realities into Angola. But also, we need to understand that this is a process that will make us capable on develop on young children this kind of mentality of learning new skills, to learn how to think, and to look at the country, at the needs and the problems, and develop simple solutions that work for our identity, contextual identity, and we can see more people into the building solution end of the equation.
Excellent.
I mean,
Thank you so much.
I think Morato, Erickson, thanks. I think said so much about what is needed in Angola, and I just want to maybe add one aspect to what digitalization nowadays allows, which I think is such a game changer when we think about global opportunities. So I think so far in this conversation we talked about financial inclusion in the country, we talked about internet penetration in the country, but I think when we talk about digital skills and skills in software development, etc., these are actually global skills, right? So the opportunity that people in developing countries have to become part of a global workforce, and also actually the countries have to make the governments of countries have to make their country really a powerhouse for international work on the digital sphere, is something that I believe most people and most countries and governments haven't really grasped fully yet, right? Like,
yeah.
Right? I mean, the fact that now you have young people, let's say, coming out of in Lagos, where I see it, but could be in London, could be anywhere, that grow up in that country, then learn the skills how to become a software developer, sometimes on their own, on some internet courses, and then work for international companies like Facebook or Google, etc. I think this is actually mind-blowing in a way. But just the fact and the reality of nowadays, I think it's based on a very simple fact. There's the same amount of smart people in every market, in every country, right? And a lot of eagerness to learn in all markets. And I think the internet, for the first time, enables that these smarts combined with, of course, hard work, to actually be able to be unlocked on a global scale, like it was never possible before. So where I'm going with this, I think, again, it's a huge opportunity for companies. There are examples. In Nigeria, a Talent QL by Wale Yusuf, a Decathlon by Chikanobi. Gebeya in Ethiopia might be one of the companies you might have heard of. Of course, Andela, Jeremy Johnson, Ian Aboyeji, who founded that. So companies that enable, also on a larger scale, for local talent through digital skills, through software development skills, product management, graphic skills, etc., to be able to work on a global scale. I think, once again, it's an opportunity for the government in Angola, for private entrepreneurs in Angola to say, well, why don't we just go for this also as a business opportunity, unlocking those skills that we do have. We do need the training, but then actually there's a way to monetize that, because that's a global skill that is in demand, not only in the market, but actually globally. So that would be my 2 cents to that question.
Yeah.
Very good. So thank you. So finally, as I mentioned in my introduction, Angola is emerging from a 5-year recession. Macroeconomic stability is being restored, and a positive GDP growth is in the horizon. Angola's tech ecosystem has matured in recent years with a growing number of new startups, incubators, accelerators, and private sector initiatives. The official message, from Morato and overall in Angola is now the country is open for business. Guys, what's the pitch? Should investors focus on Angola now, and why? Do you want to start, Morato?
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, Erickson said in a very brilliant way, Angola is isolated and have a neighboring countries that can be looked at as a one market, because we have access to roads and everything. So in terms of market size, Angola can grow exponentially depending on the product that has been sold to those neighboring countries. First, second, we have been struggling for the last 10 years. At least the entrepreneurs I know. We have been struggling for the last 10 years with very limited access to investors. So we learn how to be lean, we learn how to bootstrap, and we learn how to build stable companies, stable startups without large access to investment. So Angola is now, because we can make we can provide a lot of value for your investment, because we have been learning for the last 10 years how to build companies, bootstrapping, and a very lean budget. So we have a very good size of market around us. We have a lot of entrepreneurs that have been learning for the last 10 years how the market operates, what is the context, and the government has been giving big steps in order to create policies to make it easy for us to strive, because for the last 10 years we have been shown to the government that we can add to the country's GDP through our solutions that have been in the market. So please talk to us. We can show a different Angola that has been shared on the news. It's not only corruption. We have a lot of good things to present to the market, to the global market.
Excellent. And I think that has to be the final word, and I think it summarized everything brilliantly. Thanks for a very dynamic and insightful debate. As we say here in Angola, até já. It's Portuguese for see you soon. Thank you so much.